So good. All right, everybody. So we've got another episode of Lifestyle Medicine today, and today I've got David WEI. So, David, if you would do me the honors, can you kind of give the audience the lineage that you are associated with in the martial arts tradition you're associated with, and then from there we can kind of dive into deeper questions. But I don't want to butcher that part.
No worries. Uh, I've been training for a number of years and under a number of different teachers and lineages. However, the one that I ascribe to is the Wudang Zhang San Feng lineage. I spent a good 5 years under the direct instruction of my teacher, Yang Shang, and I inherited that system. I'm a 16th generation lineage holder.
Beautiful. And I originally crossed paths with you years back. I want to say it was in the 2005 or 6 range. It was a while back, and it was on
Yeah,
MySpace, like when
yeah. It
when
was before I
MySpace.
went to China.
Right, right.
Hmm.
And it was, when MySpace was still a thing, and we connected through Eden Critchfield, who I believe was someone you knew in college. Is that right? Was that were you guys connected? So,
My big brother, I used his ID as my fake ID.
oh, Eden, I hope you're listening on this one. That's great. So very cool. So he had said to me years back, because at the time I was dating his sister, and he said to me, he's like, man, you guys have such kindred interests, and you guys are pretty kindred in like the things you're really all about. And he's like, you got to look this guy David WEI up. And I looked you up, and I started corresponding with you at a real basic level. And the things that struck me right away that I really was moved by was that, for one, you were passionately pursuing the martial arts, and you had gone on the pilgrimage. You had really gone to China and were doing that really romantic thing that a lot of guys want to do, where they want to go out and, like, go live on a mountain and train kung fu. So that really got me at the time. I was moved by that and inspired by that. And then I sort of stayed and watched your progression as you were just training on the mountain, and I was getting to see some of your pictures and the things you were doing. And I mean, like I said, that whole process was just romantic and ethereal. And I was like, man, what a cool thing to be doing. I was, green with envy in a very good way. But if you could talk about that process a little bit, like what got you to the mountain, how did you find yourself in that place, and maybe give a little context to what the mountain is, because I think there's a lot of people that do know and a lot that don't.
For sure. And before I get into that answer, I do want to speak to the romanticism
Sure.
around this journey, this kind of fairy tale lifestyle that I embarked on.
Sure.
And I want you to know that I could relate to that view because that's what initially attracted me to
Hmm.
China was I saw Crouching Tiger and I was really attracted to that, as you say, romantic view of,
Hmm.
uh, ancient China.
Hmm.
And when I got there, it was quite a surprise that China is not what we see it as or envision it as.
Yeah.
Modern China is not the romantic China that we're used to. It's more likened to a big Chinatown in any major city than anything.
Hmm.
And so it's very hustle bustle, it's very modern, it's very developed. And so thank you for still feeling the romantic aspect of my story in
Sure.
that I made it a point to sell that image
Hmm.
because I really wanted to speak to that aspect of the experience, almost to fool myself. Right? It's like kidding myself. It is beautiful out here. It
Right.
is
I
ancient
swear it
China
is. I
still.
swear. Right. Right.
Right. And so on one hand, it's like, yes, I'm telling a story,
Hmm.
but on the other hand, I'm trying to convince myself with that story too,
Right.
because the reality of living in China is not romantic at all. And I actually forced myself to stay well past the honeymoon phase
Hmm.
because, I really had that dream of having that experience. But I eventually left and never got it. understand, understand that modern China is a
Yeah.
whole new, yeah.
Yeah. It's brutal.
But that wasn't what you asked. You had asked what brought me there and what the experience was like.
Yeah. Yeah. How you got there. Yeah. So, like, what took you there, what the experience was like, and then giving a little context to what the Wudong system and mountain is, so people that don't have any framework for this can kind of plug into it.
Got it. I first found out about Wudang, oddly enough, through the music of Wu-Tang Clan.
Hmm.
And, like any young kid that was a fan of their music, I really enjoyed all the Kung Fu movie samples. And there was a time of my youth, I was in high school, I think it was, and I would go to Blockbuster Video and I would just rent all the Kung Fu movies and watch them back to back to back, looking for where the samples came from.
Mm.
And there was one particular movie, Master Killer, 36 Chambers. And that particular movie was rich with samples that had been in the songs. And that particular movie really highlighted the training aspect. Most Kung Fu movies is like, haha, I'm the best and I can beat everybody, haha. But
Right.
some movies actually take the time to have a story arc where the main character has to grow and develop and overcome obstacles and then finally get the revenge or whatever.
Right.
And then so this particular movie is like 2-something hours, 3 hours, but a big chunk, maybe you're familiar, is spent on the training and development of this main character.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what inspired me to pursue the art, because here's this average Joe kind of goes through this training montage and then comes out a hero. And that really spoke to me because I didn't feel empowered in my youth. I felt weak as a youth. I felt challenged and bullied. I felt I had obstacles that I had to overcome. And I was inspired by that movie and saw that Kung Fu might be an avenue for me. And if anything, I might get strong out of it. So that's kind of what got me into martial arts.
Yeah.
So then I first knew about Wu-Tang through the music,
Mm-hmm.
and I got into the training through the movies. And of course, as a youth, I saw Karate Kid, and I did karate as a kid, and I did that. But that's just what kids do, and parents put the kids through the curriculum. But as far as me specifically choosing to train as an adult, finding my school, finding my teacher, making a choice to
Right.
pursue this,
Right.
was from that experience. So then now I'm training, first 5 years of martial arts, all fighting.
Mm-hmm.
I was in Hawaii with Eden,
Mm-hmm.
right? Went to University of Honolulu. And so while there, Hawaii is a melting pot for martial arts, being right there in the Pacific.
Right.
And so you get Japanese, Chinese, Filipino, Korean, Portuguese,
Right.
Native Hawaiian,
Mm-hmm.
Contemporary American. Like you get all these martial methods like mixed together. And so every week I tried something new. And I stuck to one teacher that encouraged me to explore.
Mm-hmm.
But I really got a strong martial base early on. So I did 5 years of all fighting.
Mm-hmm.
Oddly enough, the more I knew how to fight, the less I wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized I could break limbs, but I didn't know how to mend them. And so I elevated from my fighting career into my healing career. And I spent another good 5 years exploring body work, Tui Na, nutrition, fasting, herbs, acupressure, lifestyle,
Mm-hmm.
all these other. So 5 years of fighting, 5 years of healing, and then that's when we were talking because I wanted to go to China and
Mm-hmm.
explore the spirit.
Yep.
And that's when I found the Temple Academy. I spent some time there, became a disciple, and really spent a good 5 years, over 11,000 hours, exploring the spiritual aspect.
Mm-hmm.
When I finished my time in the temple, my teacher said that I should open a temple of my own. And so I was fortunate enough to travel the world for a number of years and kind of earn my stripes as a young teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And shortly after that, I met my wife, settled down in my hometown of the Bay Area, and opened my school.
Which is entitled what?
Wudang West Cultural Heritage Center.
Beautiful. And how long have you had that open? How many years has it been officially?
We officially got established in 2012, where we got our articles of incorporation and bylaws and
Right.
all that. all that corporate stuff. So we did that officially in 2012, but I had been teaching under this moniker for the last decade.
Yeah. Yeah, right. You've been doing quite a bit. So just to flush out a couple of details on that. So when you were training for the 5 years, when you were doing the healing work and whatnot, the time you spent in China, when you were actually at the temple, during that time, if I remember correctly, you weren't there full time, like throughout every season of the year, right? There were periods where you would come back. Is that accurate? Or were you living there full time for any length of time? Was it kind of like,
Both.
Come back to the States, live there for a few months, come back?
Both. I first saved up for 2 years. I went in 2003 to just kind of visit. And I realized I wanted to be there. So I saved up for 2 years to go for 3 months.
Wow.
Then at the end of that 3 months, I was so heartbroken because I thought I'd never make it back. And I'm okay with going public with this. I went back in the fall after those 3 months, and California had just passed a medical marijuana statute, and I got invited to work on a farm.
Yeah.
And in 1 month, I made enough money working on this farm to spend a whole year in China.
Yep.
And so I went back immediately, and I proceeded to spend 10 months of each year in China at the temple. And the remaining 1 month, I would come home in the fall, again for harvest time, so I could make more money. And also, my mother's birthday is in the fall, and so I would come and be a good son. Yeah,
good for you, man.
But otherwise, I was in China.
Yeah,
10 hours a day.
Yeah, I mean that's again, it's amazing, and it's a really cool. And I'm not sure if you've caught the first episode of this podcast about 10 months ago. I interviewed Javier Rodriguez, who was one of Dr. Yang Ming's disciples, and he lived on
Javi. Yeah, he's the homie.
Yeah, Javi's great. So he's amazing, and I met him while I was on the mountain, and he, it was a very similar kind of conversation where you guys share some similar threads there in terms of he spent 10 years on the mountain, 9 years technically. He came in the second year program, but it was the same kind of thing, right? It's like, 8 to 10 hours a day, nonstop for many years. And so I think just, the acknowledgement I gave him, and I would like to give you too, is that I think it's a beautiful rhythm to embark upon and to engage in nowadays, because the way the world is and just the speed of the modern culture and of technology, this was like the antithesis to that, where you're actually going back to just analog, moving your body and learning about mind, body, spirit. I mean, I think it's a really cool thing to do nowadays, and I think it's whatever you want to call it, a rhythm or a vibration that I think the culture needs to remember how important it is to do these kinds of things. So, my acknowledgement just to you there on that for doing that. And I think it's beautiful. And then,
Yes, sir.
when you were in this process, okay, and you said, this is a cool theme. You said very similar in my training, which has not been as extensive, but in my martial art training, that was one of the things I came across. I studied in Tung Shu Dao for 5 years, Vince Black's system. And
Korea.
Yeah. And one of the things that he stressed in that system, and what you had just kind of mentioned, some sentences back, which was, it's real easy to snap a bone, but knowing how to mend it or learning the medicine kind of makes you complete in a sense, where it's like you've got the martial destructive yang side, you've got the restorative healthy yin side. And if you want to be complete, technically, it's really good to understand both. And, I think a lot of martial artists, and maybe in your first 5 years with all the fighting, maybe you saw that theme too, where fighting was the prominent thing, but these guys' bodies would just get banged up, something fierce. It's like contact sports. They come out with pretty serious injury and not having a lot of longevity in their practice. So when you went down this road from the fighting to the healing side, were you thinking, I want to work on other people, or were you focusing on the healing therapeutic aspects of the art itself for your own personal?
I'll tell you how it came about, actually. I was watching a Shaolin monk performance. They have a demo troupe that travels the world. They do that Shaolin Wheel of Life show. And, at that time I had a strong interest. So I went, and like any performing arts show, you're going to have an opening act, right? And this particular opening act was a Taekwondo troupe. And it was a sports Taekwondo troupe. And their demonstration was breaking of tile, breaking of ice, breaking of brick, breaking of wood. One of the impressive things they did was they put an apple at the end of a sword, and then someone kicked the apple off and like split the apple, and it was very impressive, very coordinated, very sequenced and executed perfectly, and the school clearly had their routine set. However, I wasn't impressed, and I just saw them break, and at the end of each break, someone came with a little broom to sweep off the floor and then break something else and then clean that up and then break something else and clean that up. And I realized I would have been way more impressed if someone broke some ice and then put it back together.
Right.
Break the brick, but then put it back together. Like, show me something special. Yeah. Anyone can. Right?
Yeah.
And that's when it clicked. And my teacher had a saying, and it kind of summed it up really well. Boys break, men mend.
I like that.
It just shows, an evolution, and especially in the conversation of like toxic masculinity and this all this stuff is so prevalent. Yeah, boys break. We break things. Absolutely.
100%.
But if we're able to mature and evolve past that, we can also mend things, and we can also build things, and we can also save things. And so I think it's really important for us as martial artists, and even now in our common era, us as males, to explore this aspect of maturity in our work and our skill and our character. Yeah.
Agreed, man. I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think those are very wise words. I support them fully. And as you're talking about this, it gets me, there's so many different areas, man. I've wanted to talk to you like in this kind of context for a long time. So I've had a lot running through my head, things I want to pick your brain on. But one of the things that drew me to, I would say, the internal martial arts, the things that drew me to ultimately to Chinese medicine, all of it, what kind of drew me was at the undercurrent, there was something beautiful and elegant about the way the lineage presents this stuff. And I think it's a really beautiful, artistic and elegant way to present how to navigate life and how to cultivate health and how to even study the martial arts with these primers, these larger concepts, the 5-element theory and all these things. So I guess that my question to you is the elegance of, at least what I call elegant within the systems, was that ever a draw for you? And if yes, what was it? And if not, what was the draw outside of just the fighting and the healing? Were there deeper layers, I guess, to what pulled you into this lineage of knowledge?
Yeah. When I discovered that it was all the same shit, part vernacular.
Yeah.
So as to say,
you can swear on this podcast, yeah.
Yeah, fuck yeah.
Yeah, you could curse all you want.
So, when I realized it was all the same shit, that's what wanted me to go deeper into it. And by going deeper into it, I realized that it was actually going deeper into me. So as to say, beyond the fighting, beyond the healing, there's the spiritual aspect, right? And that's what I went to the temple to pursue. And so consider a move that can break an arm, right? You can twist someone's arm and dislocate a shoulder or something. That same exact move done lightly can be a therapeutic stretch.
Right.
Literally the exact same move, minus a little bit of torque.
Right.
And so with that in mind, the only distinction between a healing art and a hurting art is me. And what distinguishes a move from being beneficial for my health or detrimental to my health is the intent I have as a practitioner and the intent I have when I apply. And so when I realized it was all the same shit, the only difference was me. I was like, oh shit, there's a whole nother avenue to explore here in the martial arts.
Right.
And it was less about more material to learn. It was more of me to discover. Um, it seems nuanced, perhaps, but it's a world of distinction.
Agreed. Well, those nuances
So
matter.
yeah. So does that kind of answer your question
It
as
does.
to what I saw? And
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful threads, man, to see. And very similar, like the things that I've found. I mean, I think studying these things, that was the piece that really got me as well. When I started, my first style in college, where like formally studying, I did judo and Shotokan with my dad as a kid, but the first one was, I don't know if you've heard of it, it's called Kuksul Wan, but it was a derivative called Kuksul Do. But it was really taught from an internal, external place. And I remember studying it, man, the sentiments that you're saying, like really ring home for me. Like it really, I remember thinking, I don't know what spirit is fully, but something that I can't put a finger on inside is just grinning ear to ear. There was something inside that felt big and happy. And it was the first time I had felt it. And I think that's what drew me the most outside of the fighting and outside of all the cool, badass things, quote unquote, that come with martial arts. The breaking boards were fun, but it was just how I felt. And I think that was the spirit of martial arts, the spirit of movement. And that sort of brings me into the next question. And I asked you this before when we got on our call the first time, when I was like, David, I want to get you on. I want to pick your brain. And one of them was about this. So, I've heard, and I don't know if this is fully true, and I would love to hear how you can flesh this out some, but Gong Fu, studying, Chinese Gong Fu and yoga, those things having a connection, feeding one another, influencing one another, and some martial arts systems externally reflect that and others not so much. And it really seems like, at least to my eye, it's different than yoga, but like the movements that I've seen you do, I've watched some of your YouTube videos and pictures I've seen. It looks like a blend of like yoga and kung fu. There's like these really dynamic, elongated stretches, but that are rounded at the same time and still kind of have that internal structure for movement. So I would love to hear if you could kind of explain that and break that down and maybe fill in some gaps. I guess the relationship if it is between, yoga and Gong Fu, or if, Taoist yoga, like how it all fits. Because those are holes I don't fully get, but I would love to hear your take on all that.
I have an answer. It's not neatly packaged with a ribbon and a bow.
Sure.
But perhaps I can kind of speak to some of those ideas from my experience.
Yeah.
Yoga, as I understand you're asking about it, speaks to the asana practice that's commonly practiced these days.
Correct.
Not necessarily the devotional yoga, the karma yoga.
That's exactly
all
right.
the other.
Yeah.
You're specifically speaking to the asana, the movements.
The postures.
Right?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. And then when you're speaking to kung fu, you're speaking to a movement-based system of self-defense, not so much the ethic of hard work over time.
Correct.
Okay. Good. So how do martial movements and yoga as a movement practice dovetail, and how that relates to my expression?
Exactly. You're right on. You translated perfectly, man.
Okay, cool. There's only so many ways that you can move the body. We relate it to bagua in a sense. Like take your finger, for example. You have up, down, left, right, in, out, twist. 8 basic directions.
Right.
And most every joint, shoulder, for example, up, down, front, back, twist, compressed, extend. Like we all have these 8 basic ranges of motion. And so, this system does it like that. This system does it like that. There's only so many ways you can move.
Right.
And if I move my shoulder for my own practice, this may help me deal with my stress and tension. Right? Because it's very common for tense people to have their shoulders up.
Correct.
So if I explore ranges in my shoulder, I'm going to alleviate that stress and tension. If I make ranges in my shoulder, I may also allow myself to take bigger breaths and lower my heart rate, or impact my blood pressure, because I'm also massaging my heart and lung with these movements.
Right.
If I do these movements with an intent, this could be a shoulder bump or a shoulder strike. Kao, qian kao, bei kao, as we say in Tai Chi, right? Hitting with either the front or the back of the shoulder. And then, spiritually, I'm going to want to feel the space in my shoulders relax, and I want to feel my neck open, and I want to sit comfortable in these postures and allow myself to be comfortable over time. Can I stand still for 10 minutes? Can I sit still for 10 minutes? Can I allow myself a comfortable structure to rest in my spiritual practice? Right? So just the shoulder and how I move my shoulder can show up for my personal wellness, can show up for my self-defense, can show up for my spiritual practice. And so what you may see as moves that are similar to yoga or similar to Kung Fu, it all categorizes as human movement, human expression.
Right.
And so, yeah, I like to think of movement in terms of function, right? And so if you see these big rounded movements, I'm going to promote circulation all the way to the ends of my extremities. If I'm round and soft, that means that I keep soft, nourished joints as opposed to locked out, rigid joints, you know? And so, yes, there's long, yes, there's round, but there's also short and linear. And there's also, you know, there's tight and compact, there's loose and long, and everything in between.
Right.
And beyond style, because every style will have its pros and cons, its pluses and its limitations, I think it's appropriate for each individual to explore what's available to them. And that availability, if it's available for them to express themselves authentically through.
Thank you. Good answer, man.
I kind of just pulled that out my ass.
No, it totally worked, man. I'm right there with you.
Because, you know, the finer point to that I can make is, take an example, 5 animal qigong. Okay, in our lineage, we have a 5 animal qigong. I am 6'5", 280 pounds, quite big. My teacher is 5'4", 120 pounds ish. And then Kung Fu brothers, Kung Fu sisters, young, old, tall, small, everything in between. Guess what? We all do the form different.
Yeah.
You know, and appropriately so. Again, I'm 6'5", 200 plus pounds. If my teacher tried to move like me, he would hurt himself.
Right.
He's a master, but he has no business trying to move like me and my constitution. By the same token,
yeah,
I'm going to try and mimic him because he's a third of my size.
Yeah.
I'm not going to try and do the stuff that he can do, but I can look at the principles of movement and explore those within me. And he can look at the principles of movement and explore those within him. And then she can look at the principles of movement and explore those within her. And then we can take a principal series of movements, 5 animal qigong, and it will show up differently for every person. And that's celebrated, right? Whereas in some systems, they want it to be to the T. It has to be just like this because Grandmaster did that, you know, however long ago. And I'm not a 5'2" Chinese old man, but I need to move like that. Everything needs to be aligned just like that. And then what ends up happening? Every year, every generation, every student says, oh, I'll never be as good as teacher. And the next generation, oh, we'll never be as good as teacher. And then every generation just gets what? Watered down.
Dilutes it.
Because no one wants to grow, no one wants to evolve. And then so in that regard, I expect my students to be better than me. And I expect their students to be better than them. By the same token, my teacher blessed me. He says, do things that you do well and do them better than I do, so that every wave can be bigger than the previous one. And in that way, the art can continue to grow. And what may look like long and curvy in our generation may look like short and compact next generation, or may even from practitioner to practitioner. It could all be the same style. It could all be the same system of movement. But it's going to show up different. And that's okay. And that's celebrated. That's good.
Yeah. Well, dude, I agree with you 100%. And I would have to say also in, you know, my journey with martial arts, a lot of martial art teachers don't approach it that way, you know, and I think that's been like one of the biggest, like heart-centered pains that I've had around, like I've seen in martial arts like that. I love that you said that, man, that you can, you know, for one, take into size, right? the different size of people and different builds of people. Some have long, narrow waists, some have big, thick-bodied chests. You know, we're all built so damn different. So to hear that you have to, of course, like it's very logical to me, but like I said, it's not always there, man. Like the idea that you can adapt the art to your frame, and that is to be celebrated, is like so damn important to understand. And it's not always pushed like that, you know. And I know you probably know that as well. Given your last statement, right? It's like, no, it's this way specifically for everybody, you know, like you've got to do it this way. And that's just like rigid, dogmatic. And I feel like the art suffers something fierce. So that's, yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. And then to contribute to that,
yeah,
even within a particular style, again, for example, Changchuan, long fist, it has to be done long, right? It's the trademark of the style. It's the signature of the style. It has to be done long. But then that's great for spring and summer. What about fall and winter? You know,
right. Seasonal change.
It's great when I'm a teenager, but maybe not so good when I'm in my 50s and 60s.
Right.
And then so your movements should also reflect seasons. And seasons can show up morning, noon, evening, night. It could show up as spring, summer, fall, winter.
Right.
It could show up as young teenager, young adult, elder. Right? Seasons are a real thing. Cycles are a real thing, and I think practice should also reflect that too. You know, because otherwise, Western athleticism, for example, you know, all they have is summer.
Totally.
Go hard, jump faster, go, summer.
Totally.
And by the time they're 30, 40, they're over the hill, they're washed up, bodies riddled with injuries. You know, 60, 70, good luck, you know.
Yeah.
And that's because all they know is summer. However, in the spring, i.e. mornings, you know, we should do revival movements, things to promote circulation, things to promote healthy organs, things to promote tissue elasticity, things to awaken the body for spring, things for awakening. Summer, things are in bloom, things are reaching for the heavens. So yeah, I'm going to work hard. I'm going to sweat. I'm going to move my body. Fall, now things are starting to come in. Things are starting to retract. And maybe after summer, maybe I endured some injuries. Maybe I worked too hard. And so if I want to prepare for winter, I'm going to use fall as a time to nourish and nurture and heal. So we practice medicine in the fall.
Yeah.
In the winter, when it's cold, that's the time we hibernate. So that's when we're going to do our meditation. That's the time we're going to do our standing practice. That's the time we're going to recite the classics. That's the time we're going to practice our calligraphy and our arts. And that's the time to nourish the bones. Right. So that by the time spring comes around, I'm ready for my qigong. I'm ready to open back up again. And then throughout a year, my practice will reflect the greater cycles of the cosmos. They say, 人法地，地法天，天法道，道法自然. It's attributed to Lao Tzu in the Tao Te Ching. And it basically speaks to humanity follows the earth, earth follows heaven, heaven follows Tao, Tao follows its damn self. And, you know, so as to speak, like if we really want to tap health, longevity, deep wisdom, we have to look beyond the human scope. And so maybe to the natural environment that is here before us, will be here after us. Maybe there's some wisdom there in that macro that we can distill in our micro. And, you know, that's where wisdom can be. And so we attribute that with practicing along with the seasons and, you know, falling in line with the greater cycles of the cosmos.
Absolutely. And I love, yeah, it makes a ton of sense, man. You're pulling stuff right out of my stuff while I use with my clients. You know, I have their diets change, you know, during seasons. Once we kind of figure out what works for their body, that's one of the things we work on is like more warming foods in the wintertime when it's really cold outside, you know, not eating cold raw salads.
Watermelon. Watermelon.
Right. I love watermelon in the winter. I'm like,
imported from Chile.
Right. I'm always like, stop that, please don't do that. But yeah, I mean, you're speaking to it. You know, that was when I was in Tung Dao, that because it was such a strong Chinese medicine thread in there. You know, they did the same thing. It was like the Fu Gong plyometric exercises were really emphasized in the spring when the tendons were strong. You know, we did a lot more Tai Chi and Qigong and meditation in the winter. So that was always a beautiful concept. And I loved that. I don't know if it's exclusive to the Chinese martial arts, but I know a lot of, like you said, a lot of martial arts systems don't take that into account. And they're pretty much training peak performance style all year, and then that's a problem, for usually people's digestion, their mindset, their joints. There's a lot of things that come with that. So I know you're hip to this, and I love that you said that, because that really makes me feel good that, just your lineage, and I figured you would, given the extensive background that you have, but it's really good to hear in real time that that's like what you're living in your teaching. That's so cool, man. Like, I'm so glad to hear that. And, I have to ask, just going back, so I know you're a big dude, but you're Asian and you're 6'5". That's a big Asian. I mean, you're a big dude.
Yeah.
Like, so where did you get your size? Just out of curiosity.
Long grain rice.
Tons of rice.
Long grain.
Long grain rice.
No, I'm half white. I'm a rice cracker.
Yeah.
And so I get it from my dad. And my dad was 6'4". My dad was a collegiate athlete. He played football. And so I kind of inherited some of that athleticism and size. But from my mom, though they're Taiwanese because of the revolution, my family is from Henan, which is northern China. And so we have a little bit of that Mongol influence. And so we're a bit bigger build too.
Yeah.
And, I was raised in Richmond, California off steak and low-fat milk. And so I had a very nutrient-dense upbringing. And so my bones are thick and my body's dense. And
yep.
I know how to eat.
Yeah. You and me both, bro. You and me both. Well, dude, I like that about you, man. That was one of the things, I'm 6'2", 6'3", somewhere in that range, and I'm probably about 260. And I remember when I was watching you years back, because Eden was like, yeah, he's a big dude like you. And I'm like, that's so nice, man, because a lot of, at least at that stage in my life when I was training martial arts, a lot of the hardstyle martial arts were like the emphasis. And I was really drawn to like the healing arts and the Chinese systems. And the fact that you were a big framed guy doing it kind of made me rest a little easier. I'm like, there's another big dude studying some of the internal beautiful shit, like this makes me feel good that another big framed guy is going down this road. And that was always cool to me. I was like, good, that's another big dude doing this, so that was validating in some way at that stage.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm really touched by that. Thank you. And it's funny that it's got triangulated by another big guy, Eden. We're all tall.
Yeah.
And I remember when I mentioned going from the fighting to the healing. I remember making that transition. And one of the schools that I went to initially was a Shaolin school. And I specifically went for traditional martial arts. And it's because of all the fighting that I did, sure, I could fight, but I couldn't touch my toes. I had acne on my face. I was a deep mouth breather. Yeah. And so I didn't have my health. And so when I pursued the traditional martial arts, and the standards for the basics were set, horse stance, flexibility, coordination, balance, grace, all these things started to come into play. And here I am as a big, awkward dude, a little bit more insight. Being so tall, people thought I'd be good at basketball, but my nickname was Triple Dribble, just because it's horrible coordination. And maybe you can relate to as a bigger guy, having these limbs.
100%. Yep.
Oh, it was really hard for me to be coordinated. And just like you said, there was a gentleman older than me, taller than me, heavier than me, doing handstands, flips, jumps. He had a capoeira background. He had a breakdance background. And I'm like, this big guy can move. Yeah. It's okay. We can do this. Yeah. And so when you say that you get that from me, I'm really touched, because it's from somebody else big and mobile that inspired me. Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, you're welcome, man. I mean, that it always spoke to me. And I think it's, I think that's kind of like the, like Vince Black was a big guy. He wasn't, I think Vince was closer in the 6'1" range, but his energy, I always thought he was taller than I was until I really stood next to him, but his energy just read really big. But being around big guys who move well, especially in the context of martial arts, I whatever that theme is, whatever that is, that's always kind of like
triggered me and got me. It's also part of why I love Steven Seagal, because he's a big dude. You know, he's a big Aikido guy. When I was a kid, man, Steven Seagal was like, I was like, here's a big dude wrecking shop. Like, he's big. He's not a little tiny guy. You know,
He wasn't big back then. He was all thin back then.
but he was
Old
tall.
Steven
But he
Seagal.
was tall. He's like
Okay.
he's like 6'4", I think. He's a big dude. Like,
Okay.
he might even be 6'5". Like, he's like your height. He's tall. But yeah, he was lanky. And then he got really wide. You know, later in life. But yeah, but that was the same kind of thing, right? It's like a big dude doing these things, and it was always great. So if we can, kind of shifting gears a little bit, I would love to hear about your Tuina background. So you know, I studied Tuina in Tong Shi Dao for a bit, and
Okay.
I would love for you to kind of give context to what Tuina is, because I think I have a lot of Chinese medicine listeners, so they'll know what Tuina is. But for people that don't, maybe give a little context, and then maybe talk a little bit about specifically your lineage of Tuina and what, you know, how it works, what you've learned. I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah. Tui Na is a Chinese acupressure modality, and it literally translates to brush and grab. Tui Na. In Chinese, if you were to say, I want a massage, you would say, 推拿按摩. 我想要一个推拿按摩. Tui Na An Mo means massage, but it's the names of the techniques. In the same way that feng shui, we get that. That means interior decoration, whatever. But feng shui translates to wind and water,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And through the name wind and water, we get an idea of what the concept or what the principle of feng shui is. It's generate flow like that of wind and water.
Yep.
And so Tui Na, it's similar. It means massage, but to take the words Tui Na An Mo is to brush, grab, press, polish. And so the name kind of says what it is.
Yeah. Right. It matters.
Yeah. So then, also worth mention is Tui Na and Qin Na. Qin Na would be the art of seizing, grabbing, related to joint locks, submission holds, dislocations, and the like. And then so Qin Na and Tui Na are the exact same thing. Mentioned earlier, the fighting art is the same as the healing art. The move, the technique, the principle, the application, angles of attack, it's all the same shit.
Yeah.
The only thing that's different is the heart set and mindset of the practitioner. And so when you ask what is Tui Na is a martial system of medicine. That's the way I could put it.
Yeah.
Simply. And there's 5 basic techniques. Tui Na An Mo Pai. Brush, grab, press, polish, pat. Tui, brushing, is done at the level of skin. Na, grabbing, is done at the level of muscle. An, pressing, is done at the level of bone. And so Tui Na An, the first 3 techniques, go skin to muscle to bone. Our 4th technique, Tui Na An Mo. Mo is a polish. And this enables us to come out, right? We go in, skin, muscle, bone, layer by layer, Na An. So then Mo is to come back out, also layer by layer. So follow me as, you know, we polish. This is the Mo technique.
Yep.
But if I were to use the heel, that's a bone polish.
Right.
You at home at YouTube can try yourself.
You too can bone polish.
Yeah.
Right.
Polish with this part, and you feel that it actually goes quite deep.
Yeah.
On the other end, if you use your finger pads, the prints, you'll feel that that's very surface.
Right.
It's very skin. But if you use the ball in between, that's actually kind of in between. So we brush for the skin, grab for the muscle, press for the bone, and then polish for the bone, polish for the muscle, polish for the skin.
Yeah. Got it.
So we go in layer by layer, We come out
Come
layer
back
by
out.
layer.
Nice.
Right. In the end, final dessert is pai, to disperse, to pat. Right. And, if you have all your feathers on one side of a pillow, you pat the pillow and then it disperses the feathers, right? Now you have an even pillow. So if I work on the shoulder and all the blood, all the chi, all the body heat, all the energy is here in the shoulder,
Right.
maybe I could pat it out and disperse and, make it neutral again. And so those are our 5 basic techniques: brush, grab, press, polish, pat, skin, muscle, bone, and then come back out. Disperse. That answer your question?
Yes.
What is that? That
Yeah.
is so then, last thing I'll point is when we learn massage, specifically with styles, all too often we learn a sequence, a routine, a kata, if you will.
Yep.
Right? Shiatsu, first you do this, then you do this, then you do that. Thai yoga massage, first you do this, then you do that, then you do this. Swedish oil massage, first you do this, then you do this, then you basically get a routine.
Right.
However, the routine is very limiting, right? Routine may work really good on this young person, but here I have this old person, or here I have someone with fibromyalgia, or here I have somebody, based on the condition, my routine may not be appropriate. And so with Tui Na, it's not so much of a routine, it's a series of tools. The tool of brush, the tool of grip, the tool of press. And consider you could do a whole session, 2-hour session, just brushing. Someone may think that's boring, but if you call it skin exfoliation, if you call it lymphatic drain,
Right.
you can do a 2-hour massage of just brush.
Just that.
And people will pay top dollar. If you do a 2-hour massage of just thumb pressure, it's going to be on technique, number 3, right? But you could also call it shiatsu, and there's entire systems around body massage with just thumb pressure.
Right.
And then so it's less of a style, more of a set of tools that, depending on what presents itself, we have something appropriate for the circumstance. If I have a broad surface area, then I'm going to brush with a broad surface, grab with a broad surface, press with a broad surface.
Right.
If I have a fine surface, I'm going to brush with a fine tool, squeeze with a fine tool, press with a fine, polish and pat with a fine tool.
Yeah.
So brush, grab, press, polish, pat. It's just relative to what you're working on.
Yeah. Which terrain of the body you're touching, right?
Exactly. What landscape I'm on, what's the climate, I can modify my technique accordingly.
That's a beautiful concept that you just touched on, man. That's a beautiful explanation too. And I appreciate that you said that, the climate, right, of an area. And I think that's kind of where the pieces that I really liked about Chinese medicine that they brought out were about, dampness, dryness, coldness, heat, and you can feel these things on a person's body, right? And that kind of gives you the framework too of if you think of the body as a landform or a terrain. I think that's one of the cool things about Chinese medicine, that they are always working that idea about, as above, so below, macro and micro link. It's holographic in a sense. So, and I think that really establishes, a beautiful approach for one. Like, so you describing that, right? It paints a beautiful picture, but then it brings the art and the aliveness too to I think these systems and the way they think about it. Like, there's something really beautiful about that. I think coming from an art background, I've always loved that they do that. That it's not a mechanistic technique. It actually has like real, I don't know, it's got juice behind it. It's got a backbone to it. So it's amazing. So I love the way you described that, man. It's a really beautiful explanation of the Tui Na. When you acquired all of this, so you went from fighting, you went to the healing, you did all of your training, you come off the mountain, you come back and you're teaching, right? You're like living here, you get married and you're plugged back into real life, quote unquote. What have you seen in terms of getting these arts into the hands, minds, and bodies of Americans? Like, what's been the most challenging piece of that? Because I'm sure it hasn't been just all, easy. So I would love to hear like what's been, or if there have been challenges, what have they been in terms of like, taking this ancient wisdom essentially and making it, modern and accessible for people.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I could speak to that is people love to learn.
Mm-hmm.
We are in an information age. People have broad interests these
Yep.
days. People are very cultured, and yeah, so I think people love to learn. People love to experience. People love to be engaged. People love to be entertained. People love to see, do, feel new things. And in that regard, there's no shortage of interest.
Mm-hmm.
You know, by and large, people that see the work, it's really easy to get them interested.
Yes.
So the interest is up, the willingness to learn is up. Where it's down is the willingness to practice.
Mm-hmm.
And my teacher would always say that learning this big, practice this big. And it takes maybe 3 to 5 times, going back to moving the shoulder.
Sure.
It takes about 3 to 5 times to promote circulation.
Mm-hmm.
It takes about 1,000 times to get fluent and have it be comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
It takes about 10,000 times for it to be autonomous and second nature,
Mm-hmm.
right? And what it is just the reps. I think there's a quote attributed to Bruce Lee that sums it up perfectly. I don't care about the 10,000 things you did once.
Yep.
I care about the one thing you did 10,000 times.
Correct.
And so with regards to challenges here in the modern era, again, my Instagram feed is, I got followers and people love the shit. And,
Yeah.
the interest is through the roof.
Yeah.
Who's sticking around and doing the work?
Metaphor for life, right? Yeah, exactly. Who's doing the work, right?
Yeah. Horse dance is easy to learn. Like, who's going to stand it, though?
Right. Oh, man. So with that, so acknowledging that and seeing that practice is sort of like the thing that is lacking or maybe deficient in the culture, and I'm not asking you from like a seminar, inspirational speaker, like how do you fix that, David? But I mean, when you think about that, like as you wrestle with that, what is the missing link? Like what do you think is a piece of will get people inspired or activated or forward moving to really embrace practice? Because I know from a lot of people I talk to, the biggest thing I hear, like the biggest like excuse more or less, and I think sometimes it's true, people are just like, the time, I just don't have any time. And that's always, people default to this. I don't have time to practice for something 10,000 times. I don't have, that's one of the things I hear, but I would love to hear like, yeah, what do you think's the missing link? Like what do you need? What do people need to hear to get to the point where it's like, damn, practice is really fucking valuable and I need to do it. Or, maybe it makes them want to do it, but I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, that's a really juicy topic and we can take it any number of directions. However, I think one that I play with a lot, one analogy I play with and share with a lot is one of how fortunate we are
Mm-hmm.
to actually have this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
If we trace back to antiquity, specifically these Chinese practices, like who was doing these things? It was the wealthy elite,
Mm-hmm.
and it was the monastic and the hermits,
Mm-hmm.
right? By and large, the people that lived in the monastery, the people that were spiritual and did the hermit thing, they had these practices to explore a spiritual path. On the other end of the spectrum, you had the wealthy, rich elite, the aristocrats. They practiced it because they wanted to stay healthy and they wanted to enjoy their power longer.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so who's in the middle? The average peasant, the average worker, the average farmer, the average craftsman, the average, skilled laborer, the average person
Mm-hmm.
that is too busy to practice, that doesn't have the resource, that doesn't have the time, that doesn't have quality instruction, that doesn't have an understanding of value, that doesn't have any access to these arts. And then so, kind of introducing people to the concept that we as everyday people to have access to this work is actually quite the blessing.
Yeah.
And granted, still, people don't have time, people don't have resource, people don't have space, people don't have energy to
Yeah.
train.
Yep.
and this is a reality. And so, with that regard, I encourage people to explore the concept of integration. No one has time to practice, but we all have time. So as to say, if I'm going to tie my shoe, because I'm going to tie my shoe at least once a morning,
Yeah.
I can bend over and stretch and use that as an opportunity to stretch my hamstrings. While I'm brushing my teeth, I'm going to brush my teeth for a good 5 minutes if I listen to my dentist. Maybe that's time that I can stand in a horse stance, and just kind of finding ways to integrate the practice into my day-to-day life, because otherwise no one has time. And so unless I find ways to practice my Tai Chi as I cut my vegetables, as I vacuum my floor, as I wait at the stop, as I wait for my water to boil, as I'm cooking my food, like unless I find ways to make practice life, not gonna have time.
Yep. Well, and that's great, man, because I mean, and it's like, it goes back to that cliche saying that, right? They say it's like, training isn't just for the dojo. It's like, when you walk into life, the training should, right, ideally facilitate and should move out of the dojo or out of the training space. And that's exactly right, man. That's, I have a daughter. My daughter's 3.5 years old, and she's a little sweet angel, and they are time consuming as all hell. Like kids are just like, they chew up a ton of resources and time and energy and fire and your chi and your jing. Like, I'm just like, oh my God, I'm so tired. But, the thing I've realized with her is that, like, when I pick her up, it's exactly what you said, right? It's like, where's my weight? When I'm cooking, when I walk, and I've tried to share that idea with people, and I think it's a really great concept. And I think it's one that's foreign until you're confronted with the constraints of time, right? Until you're basically forced into that spot where you're like, yeah, I can't disappear for 8 hours, this one day to go do the form training as much as I would like, or as deep as I would like. So I really think that's a really valuable insight you just shared, man, to like integrate, and also to kind of add to that, if I'm hearing you right, it's like being opportunistic in your thinking. Like, where are the opportunities for me to do this? Like, where can I squeeze in a little bit of juice here? Where can I extract a little nectar from my practice?
Yeah. And to add to that thought, who has time to how to go, practitioner across all arts, not just martial arts, but a yoga, a crocheter, whatever you do, find margin.
Yeah.
Because people have lives, people have to do. So when it comes to these fun extracurricular things, I'm loving like an hour or two a week.
Yeah. Right.
And I recognize that my space is very special, and that I had an opportunity to really immerse in that for years. And I realized that that's luxury. People can't even spare 5 minutes, much less 5 years.
Right.
And so to that end, I say, don't do the hour-long stretches. Don't do the intensives. Don't do the 2-hour class.
Yeah.
One, it takes a lot of motivation, right? It's a big tax on motivation will to go to these. I might get sick after, right? And that's to take motivation away, so I deal with soreness. So maybe instead of doing one big chunk of time, what if I did 5 minutes 10 times through the day?
Right.
And then in terms of volume, the volume will be the same. And I may be doing small, manageable chunks, but through the repetition today, I actually foster new neural pathways, actually gain fluency and develop a skill quite fast. Because I do little bit, all, as opposed to one once a week, right? And so, again, with the conversation of integration and opportunistic, like putting a timer on your phone for 1 hour, or that goes off, treat myself to 2 minutes of practice.
Yeah.
And then that could be a full access point. And then that way I still get the time in, still volume in, still get the repetition in, and it still meets my lifestyle.
Absolutely. No, Ben, beautiful words, great advice, and I think I think that's one of the few ways, or one of the most important ways, I should say, like the arts are going to, I think, continue to move forward. Is that I think that mindset's going to have to be what you're talking about right there, because the time is different now, right? We're not living in ancient times, and I think just where technology has taken us to, the mind is so scattered. People, they're so frenetic in their thinking and their awareness that I think those smaller sound bites are going to be kind of it's a piece of the package. It's like the way it's going to look, I think, nowadays, especially like as we move forward, there's going to be more of that. Well, David, kind of in like closing and wrapping this up, Mike, our connection is getting kind of crummy. You have frozen and you were cutting out. Your audio was going in and out. I still got it, but it's starting to break. So I think like the technology gods here are saying that this is closing, but kind of in a closing, man, is there anything that you would like to, either a concept that we talked about that you'd like to reintroduce, or anything you'd like to revisit or kind of sum up in sort of a larger message to people listening that maybe haven't been exposed to Kung Fu practice, the martial practice, I should say, that are new to this? Is there an invitation that you'd like to give people?
Eat food, share with friends, enjoy life. One of my students, he said something really profound, and he said, "We should train."
Say that one more time, man. We should train. The audio cut out. We repeat what your student said. We should train what?
We train every day so that we can train every. It's worth repeating. We can train every day so that we can train every day.
There we go.
And
yes.
The goal other than to do it is the goal. We train. More you move, less you move, less you can. When people are getting started, enjoy yourself. And enjoy it, the more you do it.
Yeah.
The more you do, the more benefit you get.
Yeah.
Just enjoy.
Well, you share a similar thread with one of my teachers, man, Lillian Bridges. That's one of her overriding themes, is that life is meant to be enjoyed. And when you enjoy the process, you enjoy your training, you enjoy your food, you enjoy your relationships, that fire, right? The Shen in the heart, that fire element is nourished, and things get a little easier. Discipline becomes kind of a natural byproduct because we're enjoying what we're doing. So I think those are beautiful words, man, to like consider. Well, David, man, I really appreciate your time. I really appreciate what you're contributing to the martial arts world, just what you're doing, with your center, your platform, your presence, man. I dig it. I've always wanted to talk to you like this and sit down. So I feel honored and privileged to have gotten this time with you finally. If people want to follow you, man, like where can, if they want to keep track of you and they're like, oh, I want to hear what, David WEI's up to, like, where can they find you?
Don't look for me.
Yeah. Don't even look.
I'm busy enough. Yeah. Don't look for me. And seriously, we have a closed academy. We intentionally don't have online listings. We intentionally, hide.
Yeah.
And again, speak information age. You can click right swipe, double click, and all of anything you ever want to know is right at your fingertips. Mm-hmm. So information is everywhere. What we lack in my, and I want to make myself hard to find, so it's the inspired people that come in.
Yeah.
Not just people, what's this? Soup du jour, flavor of the day.
Yeah.
No, I want people that aren't. Yeah. So we make ourselves hard out of our weeding out process. So that said, I'm not going to tell you where to find me.
Yeah, fair enough, man. It's an honest answer, and I appreciate it, man. It's pretty much the antithesis to like the business model nowadays. It's like, come find me. So, Yeah, man, we'll leave it at that. I like that answer, and it's a good one. It's an honest one.
Cool.
So
Well, I also want to say too that if I invite myself for another conversation because this was so fun
yes,
and a lot of fun bullshit with you.
yeah,
But we also had some things like we're going to talk about Qigong and TCM being bullshit,
yes.
and I really like those conversations. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, and
So
I want
yeah,
you to know that
it's good.
I didn't forget that. It's literally a function of, you're freezing and every other word is getting chopped out, and I'm like, oh, like we're literally just not getting it. So the technology is saying no, but absolutely 100%, I will commit to you to another episode. We will sit down. We will talk about TCM being bullshit and Qigong being bullshit and what you mean by that. Because now people are like, "Oh, you can't leave us with that. Like, what the fuck?" So that's a good cliffhanger, man, to leave the audience. So I appreciate it, man. Thanks again for your time.
Go ahead.
I really appreciate it, man.
Good. Follow, like, subscribe.
If you can find me. All right, man. Take it easy.
Yeah.
All right. Bye.
Cheers.